Hey YouTube, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. Received a shipment last Friday. This shipment by DHL, delivered by DHL and Austrian Post, and what's inside? That's the new WPL C44KM, the Toyota Landcruiser. Thought I will make a short unboxing video, but honestly, unboxing videos are not really cool mostly, and the C44 is not that new anymore. I did only see few videos so far. Actually, RC Journey is bringing a series of videos, build videos of the C44KM, very nice videos, and I did already see videos which were not really unboxing videos by Tomley and Run That RC, those guys who received their C44s for free, and they introduced us to them. But for me, they didn't give a lot of information. Till the end, I didn't really know. Oh, the C44 does have a two-speed gear and not the gearbox the C34 has, and there should be new tires and whatever. But however, there's a lot to explore. But as already mentioned, an unboxing video, simple unboxing video, is not that interesting. I guess not for you either. And so let's see what we can do. Check this out. That's another C44KM, because I received two last Friday. Quite a funny story. The parcel, the box is from the C44 I pre-ordered on Banggood somewhere in, I guess it was November, somewhere in November, and it had finally been shipped on December 19th by EU priority line. And as we can see here, it has been shipped by DHL, and it came from Germany and Austrian Post to my door on January 10th. And shortly after the C34 was available, of course Banggood lowered the price a little bit, and in the end of the year you got those, you could exchange those 20% off coupons for 200 points, I guess. And so on December 30th I ordered a further C44KM, and this one was also shipped on December 30th, and it was delivered the same day as the one that has been delivered by DHL and Austrian Post, Friday 10th of January, last Friday, but it had been delivered by DPT, so came in this box, was delivered much faster than the first one I had ordered. So I received two on last Friday, and I did only make a quick build, or totally stock build, of the C44 of the chassis, and I will show you the chassis now, totally stock and with simple electronics, and we will do an unboxing. I will unbox my first or second C44KM, and I will show you the parts, and I will also show you the differences to the C34. What do we have here? That's a C34KM, and this body will be for my highly modified C34KM, and I quickly built a further C34KM totally stock. So I want to compare totally stock C34, this one, KM, with simple electronics, same electronics, with the C44, the new C44KM, and I can already tell you there are some improvements. I'm highly impressed by the C44KM. There are few downsides or steps backwards compared to the C34KM, but all in all, this car shows improvement compared to the C34KM, which is already a really good car for the price. So remove the body, didn't really build the body, did only stick it together to show it to you. And what you can see, the C34 does have a longer wheelbase than the C34 does have. That's what we already wanted to know in the beginning when the C34KM was released. What's this post or mount for? And we will compare those two. But first I will do the unboxing and show you all the parts and show them already where they sit in the C44KM. So I don't want to bore you, I will spool up the unboxing of the bag, but then we will take a look at all the parts and I show you the parts here. So for now let's remove the C34. There's another C34KM. That's my highly modified chassis. I made the build series and upgrade series. Still didn't finish it. Still I'm working on the interior of the body and the lights. I know a lot of time has passed. And we can also compare it to this one, to the modified ones. But most important, compare the stock C34KM to the new C44KM after we did the unboxing. So let's open the bag, and what you see, what's already a big difference, at least in my case, to the C34KM, the box is not damaged. It's still in quite good shape, because the C34KM, at least in my case, the first box arrived totally damaged, and also the body was damaged. That's the body. I tried to repair it. Banggood replaced or gave some refund for the awkward body, and I already had painted it, and after I had painted it up and all that stuff, I saw that it was impossible to close the doors and there were slits everywhere, and so the body was still, after I tried to bend it back and used a little bit of heat, still a little bit awkward, and so I put it to the stove with 70 degrees, which was not a really good idea, so lost this body. But here inside this looks good, everything should be fine, and there is a reason why the boxes are not that damaged. Because I guess WPL learned of their faults, what's always good, and they improved also the packing. So take a look inside. The interior parts and the front parts and bumpers are exactly the same as they are in the C34KM, so no difference at all. Those are the new real wooden, real timber planks everyone loves. They look really good. I didn't install them on the body. Now you have to screw them up. I guess I will use some clear paint, wood paint. So that's a really nice touch. Maybe you could use those here too. We'll see. Real wood. The roof, frame for lights, exactly the same as in the C34KM. Of course, the roof is different. Here we do have more plastic parts, hood. As I already told you, in front everything as already told you, front part is exactly the same as in the C34KM, so windshield, mirrors, lights, everything's the same. Hood, only the rear part is different. So you have those side parts here, you have mud flaps, you have those plastic parts which could be maybe of real timber too. Maybe we could do this. That's for the bed where the timber will be mounted. And take a look at this. Those are the wheel weights. Don't you think that's interesting? Do you see any difference to the C34KM? I do see a difference. And I do have an originally packed C34KM bag with wheel weights. And that's this. So in the C34 all wheel weights were packed in one bag, and that's a lot of weight. And I guess this caused a lot of the damage many customers had in their C34s when they arrived in their bodies. That's really heavy. And in the C34 they have 4 single bags with 2 wheel weights, so for each wheel you need 2 of those wheel weights, and those single bags of course do have much less weight and cannot cause such a lot of damage if the parcel is bumped or whatever. And that's interesting too, because this is a big difference to the C34KM, and that's of the stuff I didn't really know that it will come with. It's exactly the same as in my first one. It's full of oil, but it's okay because the gears are well lubricated inside. That's a 2-speed transmission. So the C44 does not come with this transmission. I really love this transmission, which has metal gears. It does come with a 2-speed transmission. The downside we will see later. You will lose a lot of ground clearance, but this 2-speed transmission works perfectly so far. I was really surprised. I never had a 2-speed transmission in WPL cars or MN cars. I didn't really like it. I do have 3 1/10 crawlers with 2-speed transmission, but this 2-speed transmission, at least, I didn't drive a lot, of course, I did only try my C44. It's absolutely, it runs smoothly, it's easy to adjust the servo, and I can show it to you, but first a little bit of paper towel because it's of oil, but not a bad thing. Here we also get the tiny servo, and here we have the drive shafts and some servo parts, and I can show you how smooth the 2-speed transmission runs. Let's switch on, and I adjusted the servo endpoints, but I guess you can also do this by only adjusting the servo arms. So I put, you see, even if it's running, it's really smooth. So far this is working fine for me, but you see it's but the gears of this two-speed transmission are made out of plastic, so we will see how they hold up. I did already order metal gears, but I'm pleasantly surprised how smooth this two-speed transmission runs, and I will show it to you later. The speed in low gear with 2S is about the same as in the C34KM with 2S, and the speed in high gear is of course much faster. It's okay, with the big downside of losing a lot of ground clearance. So if you compare it to the C34KM, you will see the ground clearance is much lower in the C44KM. So here's the C34KM and here's the C44KM, and you will lose a lot. However, the body will reach a little bit below the side frames, but you will lose a lot of ground clearance. But advantage, the drive shafts in the C34KM do have a really steep angle. As you can see here, I hope you can see it. My lights are not the best. And the drive shafts in the C44KM do have a much flatter angle, so that's an advantage. If you modify your C34KM, I lost the battery now, and will mount different shocks, what's not that easy, you will find that the angle is not as steep anymore of the drive shafts, because those upgrade shocks are shorter than the original shocks, and they are of course much better, but the ground clearance is better with the original shocks. Upgrade shocks, more scale, better angle of drive shafts, but a little bit less ground clearance, but still a lot more ground clearance than the C44KM does have. So I'm not totally sure if I like it, the two-speed transmission, because it runs so smooth, and it's really, I didn't have any difficulties to install it. Of course I can adjust servo endpoints with my GT3C transmitter, but you probably can do this also easily only by turning the servo arm to the correct position, so that on this end position the servo arm is here and we go to that direction. Can't tell you now how this works with a transmitter without servo endpoint adjustment. It really runs nice, smooth, silent, but plastic gears, will they hold up? And ground clearance, or this, probably it will get stuck in crawling here a lot of times. We'll see. So, new part compared to the C34KM. Very well lubricated. As I already told you, I opened it in my first C44 to check the gears. They are plastic gears, but the pinion, the motor pinion, is made out of metal. Don't know why there's such a lot of oil or grease inside. I don't know if it's really from the gears. It was exactly the same in my other C44KM. Drive shafts, as you've already seen, are a little bit different. At least the rear drive shafts have to be longer in the C44KM compared to the C34KM, because the wheelbase is longer, and the longer wheelbase is related to the rear axle. Front is exactly the same. And now we come to something very interesting. Very interesting. Those are the tires, wheels tires. I'm not talking about the rims, they are exactly the same as in the C34KM. I'm talking about the tires, even the wheel weights are the same. Some reviewers did already mention those tires are softer, they are really softer than the tires of the C34KM. And check this out, this is a tire of the C34KM and this is a tire of the new C44KM. So if I press with the same pressure, those new tires are much softer, but the rubber doesn't seem to be softer, so they do not seem to be more sticky at all. This is one of the super soft tires of WPL, the normal tires, and they are much stickier than those. And here in the WPL C34 and 44 tires, I do not see any difference in stickiness. So they are softer that way, but they are not more sticky. And I thought, what's up? And what did they do? And I found, is this lighter than this one? And yes, it is. I found, and I can show it to you, this is the soft tire of the C44KM, and it does only have 17 grams, 17.1 grams. Did already measure some days before the tires of my first C44, and the tires of the C34 are 19 grams. So the new tires are lighter. So what did they do? I am not sure. Did they only use less material? Because guys, I can tell you those new tires are horrible. So that's the biggest downstep. They are not stickier at all, so there is not any, believe me, improvement or advantage in stickiness of the tires, but there's a huge disadvantage. You will not be able to use them without gluing. You will see it later. I will do some drive tests, and I don't want to glue the tires now because I want to put some foam or whatever inside. You see, I mounted the wheel weights, and of course I want to paint the rims. But those super soft tires, if you make the lightest turn, they will get off. You do not, check this out, you are not able to do any side walling or side wheeling, and already the original and already the tires of the C34KM and already the tires of the C34KM, that's it. I also mounted the wheel weights inside. They are very soft and you hardly can drive those without gluing the tires to the rims, so you will lose the tires will fall off the rims, mainly in turning, even if you use wheel weights. But they are a lot better in this than the new ones. Those will fall off immediately. And I don't think this is a good tire. I don't think this is a good tire either, but it's much better than this tire. So that's a step backwards. Maybe they thought softer tires are better, but the truth is stickier tires are better. And if the tires are too soft, you will have big problems in driving. Much too soft, and I guess they achieved this softness, this new or higher softness, only by removing 2 grams of material from the old C34 tires. Of course you can use the super soft WPL tires also with the C34 and C44 rims, but they are a little bit smaller, so they are not that scale. I will probably use the super soft tires in one of my builds. I will see how this looks like. Those are really sticky. Check this out. I use the same for it's very easy, and it's much harder, and they are even harder than the super soft tires, but you have to glue those tires too. You can't drive them without. If you want to drive without gluing, you have to use the medium or the hard WPL tires or the MN90 tires, but you need rims for those. So, in my opinion, no improvement. Those tires are bad and urgently need foams. So I will think about using the wheel weights as I did here. So I will try to make some foams, which hard foam for the side parts and soft foam, but foam for the upper parts for those wheels, because that way, even if you glue the tires to the rims, that's not good. Not for trailing and not for crawling. What else do we have inside? That's the interior. And the interior is exactly the same as in the C34KM. No difference at all. Seats, you can move the seats. The seats are much too high. In my mod build I lowered the seats. You will see it in a video soon. The same steering wheel, which is also too high in the wrong position. I also changed this. The same dashboard. What's else inside here? Oh, the bumpers. It does also come with the same bumpers. The rear bumper has to be mounted on the body and the front bumper on the rail. And if you use the original plastic front bumper, you can use the WPL winch by clamping in inside here, but you can also use, it will work, the metal upgrade bumpers. That's the rear bumper. Then you can mount lights and the front bumper. But if you use the metal front bumper with the metal front bumper mounts, posts or brackets, you will not be able to clip the winch this simple way to the car. Should be mounted that way. Yeah. Don't know if you would be able to use the original gear or the gear of the C34KM, because the drive shaft length is different. So this would be mounted that way. Probably it would still work. There's enough, and there's guess this drive shaft is shorter than the drive shaft in the C34KM too. Let's compare it. Yeah, the C34 front drive shaft and rear drive shaft are the same length, and the C44 drive shaft seems to be a little bit shorter, and the rear drive shaft. Guys, I will have to check this. I'm not totally sure now if the what's with the drive shaft length. I will have to assemble the drive shaft of this second kit and compare it to the C34, then I can tell you later on. C34, C44, if the drive shafts are the same. What else is inside? Here we find the axles, and if you think those are exactly the same axles that come with the C34, then you are right and you are not right, because WPL, those guys, I guess they hear what we say. They improved those axles. And I show you where they did improve them. And that's really nice. Check it out. You can see inside here there's no paint anymore. And also in the front part there's no paint anymore. So that's a big improvement, because you can press the ball bearing in and you do not have to sand it or remove the paint before, otherwise you would have had blocking gears. So that's a huge improvement. Check, no paint, no paint, no paint. So that's really nice. The only part where it's still paint and that has or should be removed is on the front and rear red diff cover or gear cover. And as you see, those axles do have holes, openings for the pins of those covers. Those 1, 2, 3, 4. They are of different size, so those here on the right side are larger. It's no problem for those pins of the cover to be inserted. But those on the left side, they are significantly smaller. You see, I can't get in, and here I can get in. I don't know why they did this, but it's in all of those axles the same. And you will not be able to press this really in. So what you will have to do again, but that's the only modification, use a blade or whatever and scrape for the front axles the left two pins, those free of paint. So those here, the paint has to be removed, and then this will fit perfectly too. And in the rear axles they even removed the paint from here, so it's now very easy to press those brake discs or whatever they are onto the axles. It's even so easy that I had to use a little bit of blue Loctite to fix them, to make them not fall off. Otherwise it's the same in the rear axle as it was in the front axle, a big improvement. And because I didn't have any problems in mounting and getting free spinning axles in my C44 here, and because so many of you do have problems, I will show how to mount an axle now. Well, I guess it's better to finish the unboxing first, and then I will assemble one axle to show you how easy it is to get perfectly working and smoothly running axles with the new C44KM. It was much more difficult in the C34KM. So let's put this aside and check what's in the box next. Those are the links, and the links, there is no improvement at all. That's one of the things I did really not like in the C34KM. The links and also the shocks and the rod ends, the plastic rod ends, they do have a thread of 2.7 millimeter in diameter, and it's really hard to make any modifications. I do have a ton of ball ends and links and threaded rod and balls and screws and all this stuff from my 1 to 10th, 1 to 12th, 1 to 18th, 20th, 60th, 24th cars, but none of them, and also the upgrade shocks of WL toys or whatever, does come with 2.7 millimeters, and so it's really hard to find upgrades. The links are not the main problem, it's really hard in the shocks, and those ball screws or those ball links with thread do also come with a thread of very unusual diameter. I guess it was 3.5 millimeter. So I don't like this at all. It would be so nice if they would have 3 millimeter or 2.5 millimeter threaded rods for the links, and mainly the ball ends, the plastic ball ends would have 2.5 or 3 millimeters, so you could use a ton of your own stuff for making upgrades. And also those balls are huge, so none of my plastic and metal ball ends, I do have a ton of from cars and helicopters, will fit on those large balls. So very difficult for modifications. I don't know why WPL used such strange dimensions for this. Would be a huge improvement, at least for people who like to tinker and upgrade and modify, if those would have 2.5 or 3 millimeters, and if those ball joints would have thread of 3 millimeter and the balls would have usual diameter. So you are totally stuck in using this stuff, and upgrading, as you've seen in my upgrade series videos, is much more difficult that way. What's more inside here? Well, let's open the bag too. Rods, springs for the shocks. Shocks are identical, the same bad shocks as the C34KM had. Screws. The screws are some way sorted this time. Those are the ball ends, and those are those plastic ball joints with a diameter no other car has. And more screws, hardware. However, I didn't have problems in assembling this frame, really. Didn't find some screws for the steering, I guess. I used my own ones in the metal parts. They use 2.5 millimeter threads, that's okay. Okay, windows. And the servo. The servo is also a big upgrade compared to the C34KM, because this servo does have metal gears. I opened it. It's well lubricated, metal gears, but no ball bearing here on the top, only a bushing. It's not waterproof, at least there are no seals, but however, I mounted it. We will see how it works. Nice upgrade, metal gear servo, same dimensions as the old C34 servo, and you get some of those parts. You get that's for the drive shaft. I don't know why it's inside here. And you get also blue Loctite and I guess red Loctite. Nice. I guess that's Loctite. Is it for lubricate? I never used this. I use my own stuff, but probably that's for lubricating the gears. Maybe mentioned in the manual. And that's Loctite, I guess, red Loctite. I used, what's important, blue Loctite for all metal to metal part, and that's two parts of the drive shafts. I really don't know why they are packed here, and servo arm and the pins for the doors, and you get 2 hex wrenches, which you will need for mounting the grub screws. What else? Well, the main part of the body, as I already told you, this is also Oh man, don't hurt yourself. They use a lot of plastic. And this is exactly the same. The total front part is exactly the same as it is in the C34KM. So you could use, if you want, the back part of a C34KM, and you can mount it here to the front part. Will fit together, but of course the wheelbase of the C34KM is smaller. Same nice stuff. And this time I got my two kits without any damage. Thumbs up. As already mentioned, I guess packing the wheel weights a different way was one of the main reasons for the kits arriving without any damage. Frames exactly the same, no difference to the C34KM. So what else inside? Not more, but the manual. Okay, some stickers. I won't use them. It's a little bit better. The quality is a little bit better than the manual in the C34KM. It's still not perfect. It's still difficult to find the right screws, but they sorted the screws this time, so it's a little bit better. It's not a Tamiya manual, but thumbs up, they improved. This time you always get lists what you will need for assembling and also the screws, but it's really hard to know the same stuff as in the last kit in the C34. What is the screw number 1, 6 by 5 by 2.3 millimeters, and the others are 8 by 4 by 3 millimeters. They are a little bit larger, and I tried to measure the screws in the beginning, and I didn't really succeed. So I used the screws I thought that would be best. In the shocks, mounting the shocks, don't use too long screws to mount the shocks to the frames. When I built the C34 frame for this video for comparison, I used too long shocks, and then the shocks I used too long screws, sorry, and the shocks didn't work. So first part, if you assemble the kit, I recommend to mount those ball screws for the links. If you forget it, you will do hard in the end mounting some of those screws, and you will have to disassemble some parts again. Believe me, I know it. I did it wrong more than one time, I guess. I built 3 of them so far. 3, yes. So if you start building, mounting those screws. Since there is a Benhard bar, you will only have to mount 1 of those ball joints, so with screw in the end on the left side and 2 on the right side, because there's only 1 link. Otherwise, the manual was fine. Did have few troubles. I didn't have any troubles at all, to be honest, when assembling the kit. What was not totally clear for me, there is also a new steering link. Where is it? It's here. You see, this is with banded in the end. The steering link in the C34 is straight. We'll compare it later. And I was not totally sure how they wanted you to assemble this steering rack, steering linkage to be installed on second hole. What is first and second hole? It has to be installed, I guess, on the inner hole. but and I mounted it on the inner hole from below, but this steering link to the servo, the steering linkage to the servo, I did mount on the outer hole. I guess this was right, however it works. And I couldn't find those screw number 6.54 2.5 millimeter. Probably they were anywhere, but I used 2.5 millimeter screws, I guess 10 millimeters of length, and they worked fine. 6.5 is, I don't know how they did want you to mount this part, because there is no thread. So you have those two ball linkages for the two steering rods, the one steering rod that connects left and right steering knuckle, and the other steering rod that connects steering to the servo. There is no screw for this steering link shown in the manual, so should it be mounted on the same screw that mounts the lower steering linkage, but then this screw would have to be much longer, and anyway it's written 6.5 millimeters in length. That's far too short. I used 10 millimeter, I guess, 2.5 millimeter screws, hex button head screws, and I used the 10 millimeter for the lower part, which fits perfect. You could also use, I guess, 8 millimeter. 10 millimeter is about half a millimeter too long. 8 millimeter of course will not stick out the steering knuckle here, and anyway it worked perfectly. 10 millimeter, and I used a further 10 millimeter 2.5 millimeter screw for the upper linkage and mounted this to the outer hole. 2.5 millimeter thread worked, so those threads of the steering knuckles, they do need M2.5 screws. So use 1, 2, 3 M2.5 by 10 millimeter or 8 millimeter screws to mount this, and you will be good. I think I have done good, and 6.5 millimeter is, in my opinion, far too short, because it wouldn't stick out of this ball. But that was the only slight problem I had, and it wasn't a problem because I did hard assembling this kit according to the manual, because normally I do want to assemble those cars the way I want, but because I knew I want to make this video, I made a total stock build. And one part is still missing. Where is it? Those are those axle, how is it called here? Axle truss. So those linkage holders, where are they? I missed them somewhere. They are in which bag? Maybe here. Ah, here they are. And those, unfortunately, you get some of them are again made of plastic. And here they are. Get how many? Only 2. Here they are together with the mirrors, and those are made out of plastic, as in the C34, and that's the weakest point of the C34. If you buy an upgrade, the first upgrade you should buy for the C34 and the C44 is this. Those are made out of metal, because the plastic mounts, they are really weak, they break easy. Where I did, yes, here it is. So here the panhard bar is mounted, and here you can see that's already broken, and the part of the panhard bar will also break, or can break. You can use the rear axle mount that's on the rear axle for the front if the part with the panhard bar breaks, so you have one in spare. But if this part breaks, you will have to use a new one. So I did already buy some of those. Buy this upgrade. I will give the link in the description. Highly recommended, really necessary upgrade. Metal link holder for the axle. So, unboxed everything. Let's put the stuff back in the box and I will show you how to assemble an axle quickly. It's really quickly, a huge improvement to the C34. So let's assemble one axle now. Let's do the front axle because it's a little bit more difficult than the rear axle, because so many of you did have problems to get smoothly running axles in the WPL C34KM, including me. I had to remove a lot of paint, but finally I got all those axles perfectly smoothly running. What will we need? You will need your normal Phillips head screwdriver, and concerning those Phillips head screwdrivers, meanwhile, I highly do recommend, you won't need a Phillips head 00 or 00 really for assembling the C34 or the C44KM. I only needed it for the shifting servo, which has very small screws, but probably it wouldn't have been necessary. But normally I did most of the mounting with a 10 Phillips head screwdriver, and I found that a larger Phillips screwdriver, number 1, those are both number 1, is much better for assembling the kit, mainly in those screws in the frame. So for starting, maybe a 0 is handier, but those screws are really weak and the caps are weak and they break easy. And if you use one of those larger number 1 screwdrivers, Phillips number 1, you can not break those so easily, and I highly recommend to use number 1. Start with a 0 to screw it in a little bit, and then use number 1. For the Phillips head screws of the axles, you can also use this number 1, but more delicate work starting maybe with a 0. I also do have a number 1 on my IXO. Any mods and upgrades necessary to get a perfectly smoothly running axle in the C44KM? Nearly not. Honestly, the only thing you urgently will have to do, probably in yours too, to remove the paint of 2 of the pins in this red axle gear cover. You will have to remove the paint in this side. So if you take a look on the axle, it's the left side where those 2 smaller holes are. In the larger holes, I don't know why those holes are of different diameter. The pins with paint easily can slip in, but in the smaller holes on the left side here, if you don't remove the paint, it's hardly possible or even impossible to push the axle housing cover firmly into the axle. And I did this already now off camera. Simply used blade, whatever blade you want, and remove the paint. You don't have to remove all the paint as I did in my other builds. Remove the paint of those 2 pins and you will be good. Further, the kit again comes with those tiny 3mm grub screws. You need a 1.5mm hex driver. It comes with the kit too, and I think they are bad. They are very short, and so they will easily break if you wanna disassemble your kit once and they are not strong and the thread is weak. So if you can, use longer grub screws. I will use those longer ones in most places, so they are really cheap. You can use the longer ones in nearly all places of the kit. So in the drive shaft, it doesn't matter if you have a little bit too long grab screw and it sticks out a tiny eeny weeny little bit. In the shafts, in the gears, there are no gears in this kit. In the C44 and the C34 you will have to mount gears with grab screws. In the shafts and in the gears in the axles it's no problem at all. And also for the front axle, mounting those universal steering joints, it's no problem at all if your grab screws are a little bit too long. The only part you can't use, you will have to use grab screws, maybe longer ones that come with the kit, but that will not stick out of the this hex part, which will come on the rear axle. And why is this? In the rear axle there is nearly no space, so it will rub if the grab screw sticks out a little bit. If you have a perfectly fitting grab screw, use it instead of the grab screw coming with the kit, which is short and weak. If you do not have, you will not be able to use a little bit longer screw. So, and now I will show you how to make a perfectly smoothly running axle in front of camera. I hope it will work. I didn't have any problems with my first kit and I expect this working the same way now. Put the manual in front, and why this? Check the directions. You can mix this up. So check the directions. Take your front axle. The part without paint is the part that's in front here, where this cover with pinion will be put on. So the part with the paint, black paint, on your side. If you mix this up, axles won't go in their correct directions. So put it in front of you and check it with the manual. The red cover where we have removed the paint in front of you. So that's the way it will work. Then take the short shaft and put it on your axle or in front of your axle. You know we will have to use this gear on this part, so I put it in that way and check that's the correct way. It will not work that way, the flat spot, it will work that way. So I will push the gear on the shaft, and we will need 4 of the small ball bearings that come with the kit, 4 of the larger ones for the knuckles and the gears and the bushings and the screws that come with the kit. Now put all 4 of those small bearings on this shaft, 2 on each side. One comes to the gear and the other one stays outside on the outer side. The next one and the next one. And now let's put this inside. Push the ball bearings, of course, they have their place here, and the outer ones have their place on the outer side. That's okay, that's okay. It's as much in as it can go. And now move the shaft so that it sticks out of the axle about the same length right and left as it is now. And now first let's mount the universal shafts or the universal joints. So I put this universal joint on its place here. It goes a little bit harder. What's up here? Okay, now it's on. Back again. Will this have problems too, or that this does this? Oh, there's the grab screw inside. Does this work smoothly? Let's check it first. Okay. This one also does have some slight problems to slip on the axle. This was not the case in my first kit. However, let's try to mount this again and to put the ball bearings on the correct position here, here and on the outer side. And now let's find the flat spot of the axle. Okay, so this seems to be fine. There's no play here, but it's also not pushed extremely firm to the center, so that way it should work. We can make a test. Seems to work. Flat spot here, flat spot here, and now let's mount the two grab screws of the universal joints. Use Loctite for this. You can use Loctite later on too, but I will make a perfectly working. So a little bit of Loctite, second grab screw for the outside, mounted. So runs smoothly and perfectly so far. You see I do not have any grab screw or any mount on the center gear so far. Seems to run perfectly smooth, no play at all. Tiny little bit, but that's okay, this should be. So let's put the gear inside of this cover. Therefore we also will need two ball bearings. I forgot. Two more of the small ones. Those ball bearings seem to be nicely lubricated. I often use bearing oil for ball bearings in axles, but I guess it's not necessary here. So now let's push this inside. You can use a bearing pusher, but it's not necessary. You see it slips in easily. There is no paint and it goes in all way. And on the outer side there will have to be mounted a bearing too, also gets in easily. And now let's take this pineapple gear. Seems to work fine. And now check it on the side where there is no paint. Put it on and let's hope everything still runs smoothly. Seems quite smoothly, little bit, but not bad. I still did not mount the grab screw here, so I first will check if it really works, and then I will mount the grab screw, and then I will use lubricate the gears. Come on guys. No, it's okay. And does it still run? Well, rather smoothly. It's okay. Still running rather smoothly, but I do not have the screws. So let's mount the screws. Still without any lubrication. Because there's a lot to screw, even if there's no thread in the beginning. Here it's nice to use the help of a power drill. Still runs smoothly, and the last part I will do by hand and not with the power drill with the screwdriver. Take number 1. You will be surprised if you did not so far how much easier this is with a WPL screws using a huge number 1 screwdriver, but you can also use a smaller number 1 screwdriver instead of a 0 screwdriver. But I like the big handle, and you can easily screw and feel how far you should get in. Okay, and now it's totally closed, and now we have to hope it still turns. No, it does not. So I probably have to turn it back outside a little bit, and still no turn. So I'm in trouble now, guys. But now it does turn. Stick down a little bit. So, and not smoothly. So what to do? I did have this problem in my other C44 axles too. Make it run smoothly. Use whatever Proxon, Dremel, whatever you have. Screw it on and let it run. I hope it is not too loud. It will get warm here. Faster. Faster. Let it run a little bit. Okay. Nice and warm, but not hot. And now it runs really smooth. Check it. I do not necessarily have to screw this really firmly. So now I will open this again, the cover, and mount the last grab screw. Runs smoothly now. Now I find the flat spot of the shaft. It's here, and okay, now it's not here anymore. Use the last grab screw, and here you can use a really large grab screw. It will not affect the function in any way. Loose. So check it again. Running smoothly, flat spot, and put the grab screw in. And now it's firm. Yes. This should work already that way, but I still do not lubricate the gears because it could be I will have to open this again when mounting the steering knuckles. So the last thing I will do, if the steering knuckles are mounted, then I will lubricate those gears. So I will close this again now and try see if it works that way, or I will have to remove all the screws. No, works fine. works quite nicely, still has to be lubricated, and I will run the Dremel again on this, but first now let's mount the steering knuckles. This normally works well, but could be a problem if the steering knuckles push those parts on the inner side too firmly. So let's press those bushings, or however those are called, inside. Don't fall out. The steering knuckles, they are mirrored, so no, they are not mirrored, they are the same. It doesn't matter which steering knuckle you use, but the arms have to point in front direction. So here drive shaft, here servo arm of the steering knuckle. Use Loctite here too, and use those 4 small screws that come with the kit. Loctite, I will put a little bit of Loctite in the threads and not on the screws. 1, 2, 1, 2. So, lost the pushing. Where is it here? Let's put on. Of course, you have to use those 4 large ball bearings, and here I did also have troubles with my first kit to press this inner ball bearing in fully. So I have a bearing puller, you can use this, but I found those watch hammers, maybe you have some of those at home, really cheap, really handy sometimes. One plastic end. This one. So now it's in. Because if this bearing is not in far enough, you can have some pressure on the joint here, and this will give problems too. So okay, that's even a little bit awkward. This steering knuckle is worse than the ones I had in my first kit, but fully inside now. Pushing, and of course you should put the Loctite on the threads after you remove, you press the ball bearings in. So that's the way it's mounted, and hopefully I lost one of those bushings again. Now I will use the smaller screwdriver because it's handier to work. Don't have to mount those screws really firmly. If you have problems with the steering knuckles moving in that direction, there seems to be some rubbing or something like this, you can try to bend those arms a little bit outside or inside. I had those problems in one axle once. So, and yeah, second one. Easy. So both arms work perfectly, everything turns quite smoothly, and let's use a little bit of Dremel help again. You see, turning, everything fine. And if your stuff, sorry, I guess you wouldn't hear me now. If your axle doesn't run smoothly, it's really running smoothly now, even if I did not yet lubricate it. First try to loosen those screws a little bit, so still firm but not very firm. And if this also does not help, use a Dremel or something and let it run, let it run, let it run. And if this also does not help, take a look if there is somewhere paint. Maybe you did not get the same new axles as I got, and if not, you can, I do have quite a lot of upgrade gears, and you can try different gears, but it should work. So this is the third axle of the C44 now, which really runs nicely, smoothly, nearly perfectly. Now it's time to open this again and to lubricate it, and then it will run even smoother. And then maybe I will use the Dremel again and let it run on a Dremel or a drill for some minutes, and it's really okay. So I can only say thumbs up, WPL. That's a big improvement to the axles of the C34 and the cheap axles we could buy. But this improvement is only because they did not paint the whole axle parts. So the paint was the main problem before. There do come shims with the kit, tiny shims, but I did not need those shims. Check it out, it's nearly perfect, and I'm very happy, and I hope all of you guys will be that satisfied with those axles too. Only modification needed: remove the paint of those two pins here, and if you have, use longer grub screws. Now I also assembled the drive shafts off camera to check the length and verify if the length is different of the drive shafts of the C34. And what I found, I think WPL also improved the quality of those drive shafts. I assembled 4 of those now, those 4 in my C44 I did already build, and those now, and assembling was extremely easy. I struggled quite hard in assembling the drive shafts of the C34, and I also bought upgrade drive shafts of the same system. But with those drive shafts I had to assemble for 4 drive shafts, 8 of those ends. It was extremely easy. It was a matter of seconds. I didn't have to use any tools, only my hands, fingers, and no problems at all. I guess they made the small pins a little bit longer. In the C34 I had the problems, the pins were a little bit too short, and they fell out while driving, at least some of those, so I made my custom pins. And in the C34 drive shafts, those small pins sitting here below seem to be a little bit longer. They stick out a tiny weeny little bit on both sides, perfect. And it was also very easy to press those springs to their position. So it really was a matter of seconds to assemble each of those ends, and I did 8 now, and all of them were absolutely without any troubles, problems to assemble, fast, without tools. So I guess WPL also improved the drive shafts. And that's the C34, and of course the drive shaft length is different. So the new C44 has 2 different drive shafts, the short one for the front axle, the longer one for the rear axle. This part, I don't know how we should call it, maybe it's the, maybe it's the female part, is of the same length, and it's also of the same length in the as it is in the C34. So compared to C34 drive shafts, same length. Maybe I should turn those, I'm not sure. The manual says the female part is on the axle side, but I'm not sure if there is any difference, maybe in sliding, so maybe I should change my drive shafts in the C34. But the male parts are different. The front part is shorter, so check this out. That's the C34, and the front male part is shorter than in the C34, so this part here. But the rear part, the longer part, is the same length as it is in the C34. So I hope you can see this on camera. So even if the wheelbase is longer in the C44, the drive shaft length is the same, and it seems to work. So there's one new drive shaft part. This small part for the front drive shaft is shorter than in the C34, and the rear drive shaft is the same as the two drive shafts in the C34. So short drive shaft, C34 drive shaft, but longer. However, a C34 drive shaft will work for the rear axle in the C44 too. Thumbs up. I guess they improved the drive shafts too, because they are so easy to assemble now. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm better now, I know how to do it. But I'm really sure that those small pins, which are in this position, are a little bit longer now. I didn't have any problems in the C44 drive shafts now, and in my C34 drive shafts, at least in my first build, I had to cut custom pins because they were too short. And now let's take a look under the motor, under the hood. So I removed those plastic fake motors, and let's check what's the difference in the servos. There's not a lot of difference. So all this C34, C44 is exactly the same. The only difference is the new C44 has a servo with full metal gears. So also this pinion is made out of metal, the gears are made out of metal, and it has a bushing. While the C34, the gears, I never used this servo, were out of plastic. I do have a second one somewhere, but I can't find it. So also the pinion is made out of plastic. Otherwise everything is the same. This rod connecting the two steering linkages is straight in the C34, and that's also new. It's angled in the new C44, which I don't know, they call it Ackermann. I guess this should improve steering so that the outer and the inner tires do not steer the same way, because otherwise, you know, the outer tire has to go a longer way and all this stuff. We will see how this works. I'm not a specialist to judge this anyway. What I do not like, as they did in the old one, the servo should only be fixed with those two screws, if I understood the manual correctly. And in the new one it's also those tiny screws with shims, so you see there is nearly no fixture of the servo. And I highly recommend either to use one of those plates to fix the servo you can buy, but you do not have to spend money with this. As I did in my upgraded one, use a piece of plastic, cut it to correct size, make two holes inside and use it to fix the servo. The servo, it seems to me, that's not really well fixed. I equipped those two, so this C34 totally stock build and this 44, the new one, totally stocked build with exactly the same electronics. So I used one of those super cheap 20 or whatever amp red ESCs, and I use a FlySky 3-channel receiver. I use in many of my models. The advantage is it's a little bit of a bug in the FlySky system. I can drive those simultaneously. Therefore I had to change the motor wires in the C44, the polarity, because this gearbox in the C34 does drive or turn in the opposite direction to the C44 now. So I will mount the motors, what's that called, motor covers again, and we will check how the servos work. I will use this Metal Gear servo and see how it works. It doesn't seem that bad. In my upgraded C34, you know, I used an upgrade servo. That's this JXPDI 2506 Metal Gear. It's not really cheap. I do have a further one, and I will use it if it's necessary, probably in my second 34 if I will build it one day. It's here inside under the hood, but I will not open the hood here because of the wire mess. If you saw my video, you know why. And I found those small batteries. I have 2S for 60 Reno, and they fit well into this compartment. So we will test all three with those batteries on 2S, so everything's the same, exactly the same. So everything ready? Let's do a little servo test. I do for later, for some running tests, also small tiny 3S batteries from my old days. 3S 130X blade helicopters, highly modified. And now let's check how the servos do, if there is any difference. So that's the stock C34KM with a stock servo with plastic gears, with stock tires and wheel weights. That's the new C44KM, everything stock, wheel weights, and you do already see here those super soft tires. So the tires are not glued to the rims now, and this will make problems, and I do think those tires are maybe not usable without foams. And here on the right side, that's my modified one. I put also wheel weights inside now, tires not glued, and the stock, the harder tires. And I also put this small 2S battery inside, and I can control all of them in parallel with my GT3C. The C34KMs do have different gears. Those stock gears run in opposite directions, so I changed the motor wires, and the servos do go to the same direction, but the JX servo in the upgraded one goes to opposite direction. I don't have a servo reverse here, and so the tires will steer to the opposite direction now. So switched on. Let's switch on the C34KM. Let's switch on the C44KM, the new one, and let's switch on my upgraded one. And what you see, or what you can hear, the JX servo does make a little bit of noise sometimes. Now it's silent. Some people will not like this. The other servos, the stock servos, are absolutely silent, and well, I do not see a real difference in speed. The JX servo should be much faster. Maybe it is, but I can't really see it. But the JX servo does make a little bit of noise. And what is a problem for sure, the soft tires. You see, it will already lose. It did already lose the tire. The tire slipped already off the rim. Here it's still on. And I don't know how I could check the power of the servo. I will fix the servo with my finger, and okay. That's the stock servo of the C34, so it does not really steer. And oh, the metal gear servo is much stronger, so that's really a good upgrade. Do you see this? And the stock servo, no. And okay, that's even stronger. Yeah, I only can tell you, I feel it with my fingers. The JJRC servo is much stronger than the new servo of the C34KM, and the C34KM servo is much stronger than the stock the C44KM servo. The new servo with metal gears is much stronger than the plastic gear servo of the C34KM. Check this out. So the steering of the new 44KM is much better, and the steering of my modified C34 is again much better than all the other ones, but you have this rather annoying sound of the servo. So if you want to upgrade your C34 or 44 with this JX servo, think about this. Well, now it's silent. And of course I can run them, but here on the table, let's see. And you see, we'll see now. No. I changed the wires of the C34KM of my old one. I changed the wires, the motor wires of the C34KM, the stock one, to make it go to the same direction as the C44KM, the new release, and my modified C34 does run to opposite directions. So if we compare the motors and the gearing, we have to do this without my modified and upgraded one, C34. So those two go to the same direction now, and so it seems there seems to be not really a difference in starting behavior. I do push it slowly, so the C34 started a little bit faster in front direction, and come on. So let's go to the ground to do those tests. So let's do a little low speed control test. On the left side, C34KM on 2S with the same speed controller, the cheap one, as on the right side, the new C44KM 2S, same battery, same speed controller, same receiver. Now I increase throttle as low as I can. They seem to start at the same position, but the C34 here on the left side, let's try it again, seems to run a little bit slower at slowest possible speed. So how can we check this? I can use the trim button and see which one starts earlier. So to back, front, and I increase trim, throttle trim, and let's see which one starts earlier. 40. Okay. I did do those tests off camera now several times, and sometimes the C34 starts earlier and other times the C44 starts earlier. Now the 44 starts, it's earlier. That's strange. But they always seem to start more or less. Let's switch off both and switch on again. They always seem to start more or less on the same position. It's the same speed controller, and now backwards the C34 starts earlier, you see, but nearly the same position. So you see they start nearly at the same position, so depending on the speed controller, of course. And for comparative reasons, let's switch on my upgraded one with a better speed controller. Therefore I have to change throttle to reverse, and let's check how this does. Okay, it starts much earlier than C34 and C44 with the but I did some erroneous programming to reverse. So let's try this again. Yeah, you see the tires have came off the rims, but this also very cheap speed controller I use, those Racer Star, watch my video, is better than those red 10 or 20 or 30 amp speed controllers. But the main advantage of such an upgrade speed controller, which is not really more expensive than, or not much more expensive than those red ones, is it has a much stronger BEC. I guess it has 2 amp and those have 1 amp or 0.8 amps. So there is an improvement if you choose to use a better, larger speed controller. So let's try again to go as slow as possible. So you see the C34 is able to go a little bit slower than the C44. And now let's switch to second gear in the C34, sorry, in the C44. So that's nice. So that's really nice. Nearly the same speed at the first gear, low gear in the C44 as the C44 has, but C44 second gear, C34 first gear. So you see that's really nice. Oh, there's a huge difference. And that's really nice. You can change from crawling speed to bashing speed with this 2-speed gearbox, but you lose a lot of ground clearance. And now let's check the C44 on second gear compared to the C34 on 3S. So C34 on 3S C44 on second gear, but I have to fix, oh my god, those tires again. So 3S, 2S, second gear. So you see the C34 is on 3S, slower, much slower than the C44 on 2S on second gear. So very simple crawling test. Let's climb them this step. C34 2S, C44 2S first gear. So it's no problem for the C34 to climb this step, but the C44 on first gear does it already with lower throttle input. So let's try this again. So it does, and I have to increase the throttle a little bit more to climb this step. And we seem to have already the first problem with the gear. And we seem to have already the first problem with the gear of the C44. And of course it has lost its tire. And now let's switch to second gear of the C44 and check how they do now. And you see, now the C34, I go back to first gear, climbs better, but however, big thumbs up to the capabilities of this 2-speed gearbox of the C44. For comparative reasons, this step with my upgraded C34, so it goes much slower. You see, the tires don't grip, so that's probably the advantage of the C44. Where is it? Because it does have those softer tires which will grip earlier, because you see the tires are not glued. Can you see that the rims? So we shouldn't do, or I shouldn't do this with tires not glued to the rims, because the rims turn while the, can you see it here? The rims turn, but the tires, since not glued, do not turn. Okay. Okay, it seems at least to have a lot of power, and I should do this test with different tires. Last test, C44 with first gear in front and C34 in the back side. Let's try to climb over here, and I assume here the C34 has an advantage because of its belly. So I increase the throttle as slow as possible. Funny, now you see again the C34 started earlier, but the C44 started to climb earlier, and the C34 climbed this step, and the C44 could not climb here because of its belly. Second test. Again, now the C34 starts earlier, in contrary to our first tests. but the C44 climbs earlier. But the C34 does not have a problem to climb this step, and the now the C34 also is kind of stuck. Third trial. You see, no problem for the C34, but the C44 with its belly, because of the 2-speed transmission, has a bigger disadvantage here and will get stuck here, while the C34 has this flat transmission. With this flat transmission, slips over this bumper easily. And I assume my upgraded C34 with the sliders will even do easier. So now let's try my upgraded chassis, but it sits lower than the other ones because those shocks are lower, and it has a metal bumper which is not flexible at all. So let's see. Okay. But if it's on second try, since it sits much lower and has this metal front bumper, it needs a little bit of speed, I guess. Yes, but no problem. So C44, super cool stuff, super cool transmission. Only downside, ground clearance. So my final conclusions to the new WPL C44KM Toyota Landcruiser FJ45 or whatever it is. WPL, big thumbs up. I really like this car. The C34KM was already a fantastic car, or is a fantastic car, and the C44 goes the same line with some improvements. So the body is really nice, really pretty body, but however the body of the C34 is at least as pretty. So that's not an improvement, but that's again a super nice body for this car, and chassis is really good too. There are several improvements compared to the C34KM. Most important, I think, are the better quality of the drive shafts. In my opinion, they are easier to assemble, but much more important, the better quality or better painting of the axles. So it's really easy with only little work to get very well freely spinning axles now, which was really difficult in the C34KM because of all the paint everywhere. So big thumbs up for this WPL, super cool. We have a new transmission, a 2-speed gearbox. Some people will like it, some people do not like it. I do not yet know if I like it or not. Big downside, you will lose a lot of ground clearance. Upside, you will have a second gear, high speed for a little bit of bashing around, while the single speed transmission of the C34KM is much slower. It's about the same speed as the first gear, the crawling gear of the C44, and you have an additional gear for bashing, what's quite fast, really nice. But the gears are plastic. I did order already metal gears for a gearbox now, because I do not think those plastic gears will hold up very well or very long, but I don't know yet. I didn't have any WPL 2-speed gearbox so far. I feel now already if I'm going backwards, sometimes in first gear the gears seem to slip or whatever. So there does already seem to be a problem, and I didn't drive a lot so far. But what it's really nice with this gearbox, the shifting mechanism with this tiny servo, seems to work perfectly and smoothly. All of this stuff is out of plastic, so can't say how it will hold up. What's again an improvement, but I do not know if it's really an improvement, is this front steering rod which connects the two steering knuckles. What has not been improved, the grab screws that come with the set are still very small and bad quality. The screws are the same screws as in the C34, not the best, but however it's okay. But what I really do not like, and what I really would like WPL to improve or to change, are those rods of the shocks. The shocks are the same bad shocks as in the C34. The rods of the shocks and the rods of the links and the rod ends, the plastic rod ends, these come with 2.7mm thread, and it's extremely hard to upgrade or change those because most rod ends and rods have M3 or M2.5 for the cars we use, and M2.7 is really an exception. Same with those balls and ball screws with very strange dimensions, so it works well, but it's really hard to upgrade or to change. And most important for changing the shocks, because those springy shocks are not that nice. What's a real downside and not an upgrade for me are those new super soft tires. So here again, those are those new super soft tires. They are a little bit lighter but much softer than the C34KM tires. Otherwise they look the same. So they are also not stickier, they are only weaker. What's a really good tire, and WPL does have good tires, is this super soft tire. Those are the normal WPL tires. You know, if you saw my video, there are hard types of the ready to run sets, or many there are medium soft types of some kits, and you can buy those super soft tires. Those super soft tires, they are not as weak as the C44 tires are, but most important, they have to have much more grip. You will also have to glue those to the rims, but those tires, even with wheel weights, without gluing it's nearly impossible to drive with those tires, and with gluing, check this out, they are much too soft in my opinion. So foams are urgently necessary, and there are foams for the sidewalls necessary and for the top. I will try to do something about this. So what did I forget? Of course, the servo. The new servo, metal gear servo, is really nice. It's a big upgrade to the plastic gear servo in the C34. It's stronger and it's metal gear. It's not a perfect servo, but a huge upgrade, and I will run it probably till I find better solutions. Of course, you always can upgrade like here, but you see this upgrade servo makes a little bit of noise, people don't like it, and it's rather expensive. With cheapest electronics, this car drives really nicely, crawls nicely, as does the C34. With better electronics you get improvement. But that's always the case, and I like to improve. I will for sure not run my C44 with this speed controller. I will totally upgrade it as much as possible. Did I forget something? Shipping. Shipping is much better now. Bodies do not arrive damaged because the wheel weights, those are the wheel weights of a C34KM, do come packed only 2x1 bag, and in the C34 you have this heavy bag of wheel weights. So these heavy wheel weights probably damaged the boxes and some of the bodies of the C34KM. Little downside here, you have one plastic bag for all wheel weights and one plastic bag inside for all clamps to close those wheel weights, and in the C44 we have 4 big plastic bags for 4 times 2 wheel weights and 4 small additional plastic bags for only 2 of those clamps. So Greta will not like this, and honestly I don't really like this too. I think in the year 2020 we should think about avoiding all this plastic waste. However, big thumbs up to WPL for this car. Fantastic value for the money, highly recommended. Upgrades, the first upgrade you should buy for sure, link mount. They are still in plastic in the kit, and that's the weakest point. They will break easy, and if you do not like the 2-speed transmission, you can change to the WPL C34 transmission, so you can buy it with plastic case, or even I do have black and silver metal cases. You will need one further drive shaft, because the front drive shaft then has to be a little bit longer. You will get a lot of better ground clearance with the C34 transmission, but the angle of the drive shafts will be steeper, so that's worse, and you will only have low speed, so the speed and crawling abilities will be about the same as they are in first gear of the C44KM, but you will lose the possibility to change gears and have a second high speed gear for bashing around. Personally, I do not yet know what I will do. This 2-speed gearbox has plastic gears inside. I don't know how long they will hold up. I did already order metal gears for one of my gearboxes. I do already feel when in first gear going backwards. I didn't drive a lot, but there seems already to be a problem. We will see. Small servo, but this gearbox works fantastic. It was really easy to install, and it works smoothly, and so far I'm very happy, but so far I didn't really drive this car a lot. Further upgrades, make your own plate for your servo and choose the electronics you want. You know, you can watch my upgrade series. There are a lot of possibilities. The C34 and the C44 are exactly the same in front, with a few exceptions. This steering rod and the better servo. You don't need a better servo, I guess. Seems okay. Of course you can buy and use always better things. And I would recommend to try different tires. Or to find, maybe someone finds a solution to use those tires, but they are too soft. So if you go sidewalling, it's horrible. Check this out. And compared to the C34 tires, they are already not very good, but they are much better in this. I don't know why they did this. Who wants to drive that way? Nobody, I guess. Again, a really long video. I wanted to make a short video unboxing and show the C44 compared to the C34, but I guess I'm not able to make short videos. If you're still here, thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Hopefully I will finish the body of my C34 soon to upload a video of the finished body with lights and dashboard lights and driver figure and weathering and all this stuff. And I also plan to do a video comparing a lot of different small and cheap brushed ESCs for those cars. Whenever, whatever it will be, I hope to see you. Thanks, obrigado, dankeschön. I'll be back.